You are now listening to the Bayshore Community Church podcast. Our mission is to connect to God, connect to people, and to serve the community. Thank you for joining us today, and wherever you are listening, we hope that this message inspires you, encourages you, and transforms you. Our prayer is that this is just the beginning of a conversation between you and Jesus. Enjoy the message.
I feel pumped up. I don't know about you all. Church, who's good? Who's happy to be here? Anybody? Come on. Man, it's so good to be here, and I feel like a broken record. Well, like every week during the music, I'm standing right there, and I'm like, it's so good. Like I don't even need to get up there and preach. Like the band already did it. Let's just go to Taco Reho, all right? And so I am so thankful for Bo Stinkin' Dukes and for Kristen who killed that song. I was weeping. I mean, like, can we just give it up for our band and everybody who makes this happen? Like, so thankful for you guys. Like, it's good. And the reason I like it is because even if my message bombs today, and it might, all right? But church is already good, so that's why I'm thankful for the band. Speaking of good, it's so good. We have some first-timers in the room. Welcome to the basement. You could be anywhere, including the beach right now. But you're here, and so thank you to our first-timers. Now, our online family, they are on the beach. That's where we can see you, all right? So, but we love you anyway, and I kind of have a unique online family shout-out real quick. My wife got on Facebook and got on this free group where, like, people give away things for free, and they post it online. And at first, I love free, so I'm like, Lord, go get all the free stuff, all right? But she got all the free stuff. She's cleaned out Facebook, okay? She brought home a turtle aquarium the other day. I'm like, we don't even have a turtle. But she's like, it's free. And so the other day she went to pick up something from, I don't know what she went to pick up, but she came home and she was like, Joe, when I got there, the people were like, are you Pastor Joel's wife? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, they're like, well, we watch every week online on YouTube or whatever. And they were from New Zealand. One of them was from New Zealand and gave Stacy this New Zealand chocolate bar thingy. And I was like, stranger danger, baby. You can't take that. But let me taste it, okay? Listen, I am not lying. It's the best chocolate I've ever had in my life, all right? Ever. And that family had never been here in person, but today they came in person. And so shout out to you guys. Thank you for being here. I'm going to go to New Zealand just for that chocolate. Like, that is so good. I don't mean to embarrass you all, but I'm really, really glad you're here. I'm really, really glad for our first-timers to be here. And if you're a first-timer, make sure after the service you go and get this, or free coffee mug, or Fisher's popcorn situation will be out there. Hey, so we're going to jump back into this series, Triple Threat. Now, we took a little break last weekend for Dad's Day. Anybody throw an axe here last weekend? Anybody throw an axe? You still got your toes and fingers? Oh, there you go. Good. We don't need a lawsuit. All right. So, listen, when you can throw an axe and get your church on, you know you're at Bayshore, right? Don't you love it? Anyway, we took a 1-week breather from this last weekend, but we're jumping back into this series called Triple Threat today. And if you missed the first 2 weekends, the whole idea is simple. We're just talking about 3 ingredients you want in your life to threaten the average right out of your life. And so we've already hit up honor and integrity. And today we're going to complete the recipe, and we're going to talk about perseverance, baby. So I need everybody to tell 3 people, you are too legit to quit. Come on, if you use hand motions, you get extra points. Go ahead, tell them. I saw Amy on the front row. All she uses is this hand motion. That's it. Hey, I want to start with a question. How many of you have ever quit a job before? Any job, your first job, your last job, your job as a volunteer, Bayshore, quit the job. Go on, raise your hands if you quit before. Oh, wow, okay. Anybody thinking about quitting your current job? No, just kidding. Just want to see if anybody on my team was tired of me yet. I've only quit 1 job in my life. I had more jobs than that, but, you know, a lot of them, like, phased out. Some of you are like, phased out? Pastor got fired. Okay. I have one job that I actually quit, and it's not even a great story. You know, it's not like one of those like TikTok things you film, like you know, just because it's good. It's not even really a great story. But here's what happened. When I was in college, my freshman year of college, I had this goal, and my goal was I worked all summer, saved all my money, so that I wouldn't have to work during the school year. And my money lasted until November. Look, the number 8 at Taco Bell cost $5.99. I went every day. So I ran out of all the money. And my Taco Bell friend, Mike, said to me, he's like, hey, you and I, we should get a job at the Georgia House restaurant because they will pay us and they'll feed us. I was like, can you say the last part again? Because I feel like the Lord just moved right then, okay? And anybody ever worked in a restaurant before? You ever worked in a restaurant? You used that free food discount, didn't you? Or that food discount? Man, listen, you don't need to give me a pension. You just give me 50% off chicken tenders. I'll do anything you ask me to do, all right? So we applied for this job, and he said, when you're writing in what you want to do there, write food prep. Now, I'm a freshman in college. I was real good at food prep. I was microwaving pizza every day, hourly even, okay? So I was like, I'm an expert at food prep. So I put food prep in. And I got my interview with a guy named Larry. And interview Larry, we sat down, and my friend Mike was sitting in the lobby just waiting for his interview. And interview Larry said, hey, so I see you wrote you want to do food prep. How come? I was like, I don't know. My friend Mike out there told me to write this down. True story. I was like, interview Larry, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really know what a food prep is. And he's like, okay, thanks for coming in. We'll be in touch. I was like, I ain't get that job, all right? And so this is true. I left the job interview. I went to Circuit City. Who remembers Circuit City? Woo! Oh, yeah, I was probably in the VCR section, you know. And my Nokia cell phone rang. You know, the one with Snake on it, that cell phone? It rang. And it was Interview Larry. And I don't know who quit Georgia House that day, but the same day I Interview Larry said, I need you here at 4. I was like, I'm the best interviewer ever. This is great. And I worked in the restaurant for 4 years, and I loved it, okay? I was a server for a while. I cooked for a while. I became a manager for a while. It was a great job, except one time I was cleaning the fryer, the side of the fryer, and my hand slipped into the fryer. So anybody, who went to Georgia House back in the day? Anybody go to Georgia House back in the day? Okay, listen, if you ever got anything from Georgia House out of the fryer, and if it tastes a little extra salty, to pass your skin. Okay, that's all. That's it. But I did really love that job. But in 2005, my dad offered me a job to work here at the church. And, my job had started to get dangerous at the restaurant because I burnt my hand in the fryer. And so I decided to take it. The problem was I had to tell Interview Larry that I needed to quit. And for an entire week, I would go and I'm like, today's the day. You can do it. You can do it today. And I'd see Interview Larry and I'm like, nope, can't do it. Because he gave me a shot, like I didn't even know what food prep was, and he hired me. And so for an entire week, I was like, I can't do it. Finally, after a week, your weak pastor said, Interview Larry. I was like, can I talk to you for a second? I'll never forget. We're standing, they have these racks with all these cans on it. We're standing in between the rack of green bean cans and the sauerkraut cans. And I said, Interview Larry, I got to quit. And he's like, okay, no problem. I'm like, that's it? You're not going to shed a tear or nothing? But I'll never forget, like throwing in the towel and quitting. So one more time, who's quit a job before? Who's quit a job? Look at us. A lot of us have quit a job. Some of you won't admit it. That's okay. Now, maybe you're here and you're like, oh man, this is great. I've been looking for tips for how to quit my job. And that's what today is about. No, today's not about that. But today is for those of you who feel like throwing in the towel right now. It's for those of you who feel like quitting right now. Maybe it's a dream you feel like quitting. You had this vision of what your life is going to be like, and you kind of planned it all out, and everything is going to be amazing, but your life isn't there, so you kind of feel like quitting that dream. Maybe it's an addiction, and you fought, and you prayed, and you pledged, and you went to rehab, and everything was like, good for a while, but then you took a step back, and you took 2 steps forward, and then 3 steps back, and you're like, I'm just going to quit trying to quit. Maybe you have teenagers, hello. And you're like, listen, I'm going to quit living in this crazy circus of a house with these crazy people. I will live in the Motel 6 Get my continental free breakfast, you know what I'm saying? Maybe it's a marriage and you've just tried and tried and it just doesn't seem like anything will work. Maybe you feel like quitting at life. I don't know what it is, but I know we all feel hopeless sometimes. Isn't that true? We feel hopeless sometimes. But I like to give hope. Like my job here is a hope dealer. That's what I do. And so I'm going to give you some hope today, all right? Because I can't tell you how many times people have come into this church and walked out and said to me, Joel, I was going to quit whatever it was, but this church made me decide not to quit. Like a few weeks ago, this lady came up to me right after service. She was right here by the cameras. And she's like, Joel, I just want you to know, I've been coming here for about a month, and this church saved my life. And I was like, oh, it's great. Did you get like a free coffee mug or like? And she said, no. Look at me. This church, it saved my life. And I got what she was saying that second time. That's a cool story, right? A few weeks before that, a couple in the back pulled me aside and they said, listen, nobody here really knows this about us. And they're like, Barbie and Ken, like everybody. And they're like, we were about to throw in the towel and quit. But something happened in this church that made us not throw in the towel. And actually, I think we're going to do the vow renewal on the stage this fall. How cool is that, right? And so, if you want to throw in the towel, I want to throw you some hope today. And maybe you walked in and you're hearing this and you're like, I've never wanted to throw in a towel on anything. Not a job, not a season of life, not the Washington Commanders, nothing. Well, if you don't want to quit on the Washington Commanders, you need to get yourself checked in somewhere, okay? So, but listen, we all want to quit sometimes. All of us want to quit sometimes. But do you know what separates average people from above average people? You know? What? I can't hear it, but I hear a cell phone. That's okay. Hello. What separates average people from above average people is they have the grit to push through the quit. The grit to push through the quit. So we're going to talk about that today. And I stole the idea and the title of this message from Craig Rochelle, who stole the idea for this message and the title of this message from Stephen Furtick. So the title of my stolen message is Don't Quit on 6. Don't quit on 6. Now, if you have 6 kids, here's your sign. Both stinking dukes. Okay, get after it. We're going to be in the 6th chapter of the 6th book of the Bible today. Now, I know somebody went to Sunday school. Somebody's going to tell me what the 6th book in the Bible is. Somebody? I will give you this coffee mug. Nope. Joshua. From a Kiki in the back. A Kiki IOU coffee mug. Okay, I'm not going to run all the way back there, but Joshua from the back. Now, you might not have known the answer, but you know the story in Joshua 6. It's the story of the walls of Jericho come crashing down. You know that story, okay? And I don't know if you know this, but the Israelites had to walk around Jericho not 6 times, but how many times? 7 times. All right, there you go, Butch. Get some popcorn. I heard 7 right there, buddy. And when they walked around 7 times, the wall, God promised that you'll get what's inside of Jericho, and that was like the big promise. But let me just give you the setup to the story. Before the good part, the Israelites have been walking through the desert for 40 years. 40 years, okay, which means up until this point, they were more burnt than a redheaded on 4th of July. Their Crocs were all busted out. Their iPhone batteries have been dead for 39 years, 364 days. And they finally roll up to their old hometown because they used to own Jericho. That was theirs, okay? And so they're this close to God's promise. And they get to their old hometown and it's full of the enemy. It's full of, you could say, out-of-towners. Yes. I didn't say it, all right? You all said it, okay? When you were a kid, out of the 4 seasons of the year, what was your favorite season? Summer. Fall. Right there. I love it. All right. I was a summer kid. 100% summer, because in the summer, my family went to the beach. In the summer, my dad would take us to a Baltimore Orioles game, and they would lose every single time. But we would go to Boog's barbecue every single time. Jesus, take the wheel. And so I loved the summer as a kid, all right? But there was one thing about the summer I did not love, all right? Every day, my parents would go to work, and they'll leave me and my brother Tim home alone. I love that part, okay? We're alone. What I didn't love is every day they would leave us a chore list on the kitchen counter and list it out by name. Anybody have this growing up? Okay, yeah. Now, there will be normal things on the chore list, like vacuum, wash the dishes, Tim, cut the grass, whatever, normal stuff. But there was one thing that if you saw on the chore list, it was the worst thing that could possibly happen to you. Like, I would rather on the list it say, reshingle the roof in July. Or take care of a herd of cats. They cover a whole herd of devil cats. Like, I would have rather seen that on the list than to see on the list, weed the garden. It's the worst. In our house, there was nothing worse than weeding the garden. And here's why. Here was the Tice family philosophy when it came to weeding the garden. You only weed the garden one time a year. Once. Not twice. Not thrice. One time and one time only, which means when you had to weed the garden, you thought your life was going to end, all right? Because nobody had picked a weed for 364 days. And so, nobody put any Roundup in there. Nobody tilled the garden. There was just weeds everywhere. I think we have a picture of the weeds in my childhood garden. No, that's just a picture for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. But it felt like that. And so as a kid, that was the worst thing you could see on the list because, nobody had weeded anything. So my perspective was you couldn't beat the weeds. But then me and Stacy got married 14 years ago. And we wanted to have a mulch bed. And I was so traumatized from what happened when I was a kid. The first thing I did is I went straight to Lowe's, and I don't spend money on nothing. But I bought the most expensive weed paper they had. It was like $60 for 4 inches. I was like, I'll take all of it. Give me the pool liner, the stuff that nothing can go through, all right? I would have paid $100. I would have given the keys to my car. And so I was ready, and I laid all that stuff out. And then I came up with this philosophy because I was so traumatized as a kid. And my philosophy is, see a weed, pick a weed. Some of you know this philosophy. Okay, now this philosophy is very, very simple. Whenever you see a weed, you pick a weed. Everybody say, see a weed, pick a weed. Who's on the see a weed, pick a weed plan? Oh, look at you all. Listen, I live and die by this plan. If I see a weed in my mulch bed, I have to pick it. If you're over my house and you need prayer because your cat ran away, and we're on the front sidewalk and we're mid-prayer and I so much as sneak a peek and I see a weed, I will stop the prayer. Just hold on a second. Dear Lord, I pray for Sissy Shizzy Cat. I live and die by this philosophy. See a weed, pick a weed. Now, my wife, she's not on that plan, okay? She has a garden in the back of the house. See a weed, just look at it and praise the weed. Just let them grow, okay? But listen, my perspective used to be, you can't beat the weeds. There is no way, because when you got 35,000 weeds, there's not enough Roundup in all the Walmarts. When your house looks like this, you can't beat the weeds. So that was my perspective, so that was what I believed. Now, back to the Joshua story. All right, so they roll up to Jericho, and they don't just see weeds, they see a wall. Now, I don't know if you know this, but you could walk around the wall of Jericho in less than an hour. That's pretty good, right? I mean, you can't walk down the Breakwater Trail in less than an hour, can you? It's full of enemies and out of town. It's just full of people. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But you can't make it down the Breakwater Trail in the summer in less than an hour, okay? But the Jericho Trail, you can make it around it in an hour. No big deal, right? Wrong, because parts of the wall were 25 feet tall. And so their perspective wasn't weeds. Their perspective was, all I can see is a wall. But don't miss this. Don't miss this. God's promise sat right on the other side of that wall, right? Right? Right on the other side of that wall. And so 40 years walking through the desert, they are just 7 laps away from God's promise, but all they see is what? A wall. But I want to show you something good. This is Hebrews 10, 35 to 36. It says this. And if you're kind of looking at a wall, just think of this verse. So do not throw away this confident trust in the Lord. In other words, don't throw in the towel. Because remember, the great reward it brings you. Patient endurance is what you need now, so that you will continue to do God's will. Then you will see what? All that God has promised. And so don't throw in the towel. Somebody say, don't quit on 6. All right, everybody's a little sleepy, so let's say this. It takes grit, to push through the quit. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to give away the end of the story. So a little spoiler alert. The wall didn't fall on lap 1, day 1. The wall didn't fall on lap 2, day 2. The wall fell on day 7. Day 7. Lap 7 of day 7. Okay, that's when the wall fell. Now, maybe you've been in Sunday school and you remember the song about the Battle of Jericho. I don't know. Maybe some of you do, and we'll put this on the screen, and I'll sing it for you. And maybe you'll sing it with me. I don't know. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. Okay, now this time with hand motions. No, I'm just kidding. Logan did it, though. Listen, Joshua would have hated this song. Joshua would have thought, this is the stupidest song ever. Because it makes it sound so easy, okay? It makes it sound like, oh, we're just going to do a happy lappy around, the old Jericho Trail, and at the end of our 1-hour power walk, we're going to go to the Annie's pretzel truck that's right there at the outlets, and then we're going to, just watch the wall come tumbling down and put it on TikTok. Like, it sounds so easy, but listen, it wasn't that easy. This is after 40 years of walking through the desert with nothing good happening. 40 years of eating the same food every single day. Come on, imagine that. And they didn't even know what the food was. They're like, what is this? They called it manna because they're like, we don't know. 40 years of that. So let me just tell you, on year 40, lap 2, on day 2, nobody was texting their friend in the back of the line like, hey, today, it's gonna fall in just 5 more days. I can feel it. PTL. Praise the Lord. Praise hands emoji, camel emoji, fire emoji. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho. Stupid song. It would be like this, okay? Just imagine this guy, let's call him Billy. Billy has been fighting drug addiction and alcohol addiction for 4 decades, okay? And he makes some progress and he makes some promises and then he kind of fall back. And then he go to rehab and then he kind of go back to rehab and he, in and out. And it was like 40 years of 3 steps forward, 7 steps back, all this stuff. But after 40 years, he gets clean. Or so they write a song about him. Billy was addicted to drugs and fireball, drugs and fireball, drugs and fireball. Billy was addicted to drugs and fireball. Then he prayed and now he's fine. Stupid song. Listen. The wall did not come tumbling down on year 1, day 1. The wall, some of you are looking at me like, this guy is crazy. He has lost it. But the wall did not come tumbling down on year 1, day 1. The wall came tumbling down on year 40, day 7. Okay, so just say, it takes grit to push through the quit. And so maybe all you see right now are walls and weeds, okay? Maybe you see a dead wall. Hello. Maybe your depression has been sticking around so long it feels like it's a pet. Maybe you've tried everything, but divorce seems like the only option. Maybe addiction, you've been in and out of rehab, and you're like, it's just not going to work. Maybe your goal in life is to quit cussing on the road. But you cuss the whole way to church, okay? I don't know. Listen, don't quit. Quit cussing at other drivers, but don't quit trying. Don't quit. Don't quit because you've never been closer to the other side than you are right now. So don't quit. And when you have a setback, when a weed pops up, what do? You pick the weed, okay? You pick a weed, okay? Oh, I see one there. Pick the weed, okay? Pick the weed. Listen, quit smoking weed and start picking weeds. Welcome to church, okay? Just shout, don't quit on 6. Don't. That was terrible. Shout, don't quit on 6. Because you've never been closer to the other side than you are right now. So here's the last point. Why do we quit? Our progress isn't always obvious. Our progress isn't always obvious. Now, do you know what the most unspiritual moment in my house is every single day? Every single day. Okay, it's not the moment where some stranger lets their dog doo-doo in my front yard and doesn't pick it up. Although that happens every single day. But every single day, the most unspiritual moment in my house is when we do prayer time at bedtime with our kids. Come on, who has young kids and you feel my pain? You know what I'm talking about. Listen, the wheels go off the rails, man. Like all I'm trying to do is teach my kids to talk to the Lord and Savior. But it is like off the rails. Like sometimes we're praying and my boy Nixon will take our hamster, Mr. Nibbles. He'll put Mr. Nibbles down his pants mid-prayer. I'm like, you are not going to get a college scholarship this way, son. My daughter Nora, sometimes she'll be like, I'll pray tonight. I'm like, oh, wow, this is progress. And then she'll go into our closet, or into her closet. She gets her karaoke machine. Sets it up. Turns it on, which has these strobe lights when you turn it on, and it has this like already pre-made club music. It's like boogie, 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 boogie. She grabs the mic and she's like boogie, 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 Jesus, boogie, boogie. I'm like, what are we even doing? I mean, it's just things go off the rails, and forever I'm like, we are making no progress with our kids. Okay, we have a 7 and an 8-year-old. There's no progress. All right, but a couple months ago, we were riding to church together on a Sunday, which, by the way, that's also an unspiritual moment in our family. And that's not an exaggeration. We talked about it last night. But anyway, from the back seat, my boy Nixon was like, Daddy, I want to pray today. Can I pray? Can I pray? Because we always pray on the way to church together. And he's like, I want to pray today. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, you pray. And he prayed the best prayer ever. He's like, Lord, I pray for Mr. Bo Stinkin' Dukes that he will just lead worship so good. I pray that, Jesus, you'll help me learn something new today. Jesus, I pray that you'll help my dad teach like lava fire and like all this stuff. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, did the hamster must have bit you real bad today, bud? Like, what happened? And then the next week, my buddy Sean preached, and Sean did preach like lava fire. And Sean came to me after the service, and he's like, hey, you don't know this, but like, your boy prayed for me before I preached today. And Nixon prayed with Sean before he preached. I'm like, it's working. But sometimes the progress is not always obvious. Have you noticed this? We don't always see progress right away. Now, in the story with Joshua, do you think that the Israelites saw progress on lap 1? Nope. What about lap 2? See progress? Nope. What about lap 3? Progress? Nope. No, listen, they didn't see any progress. There wasn't a foundation crack. There wasn't a paver out of place. Nobody could do that thing like if you step on a crack, you break your mother's back. So there was none of that. You could just walk because there was no cracks in the wall. So they saw no progress. No progress. How did they keep going? Now, I have a theory, and I'll show you. Before lap 1, this is the final instruction that Joshua gave them. This is in verse 10. It says this, but Joshua had commanded the army. All right, so this is before lap 1. He said, do not give a war cry. Do not raise your voices. Do not say a word. He said, do not say a word. Everybody say, shut up. Shut up. Some of you have been waiting a long time to say that in church. He said, don't say a word until the day I tell you to shout, which would be day 7. Then he says, shout. And if you do all that, the walls will come tumbling down. Again, everybody say, shut up. Shut up. So what that means is, for the 6 days, the Israelite army walking around, they didn't say nothing. Day 1. Day 2. Day 3. How many of you, your spouse could not do this? If your spouse just raised their hand, you tell them, shut up. Shut up. Listen, I am not a military expert. I am not a distant relative of Winston Churchill, so I don't know. But I think maybe Joshua did that because he knew if they were able to talk for 6 days, they would be talking about there's no progress. You know, they'd walk around like, I don't see any progress over here. Over here, Fireball Billy. You see any progress back there? Oh, we lost Fireball Billy. Okay, I don't know where he is. Look, I don't see any progress over here. And it's hard to push through when you don't see progress. Isn't that true? I mean, we can push through some marriage issues as long as you see some progress in the marriage. You can push through your single life as long as there's a little bit of activity every once in a while. You can push through, being in debt as long as at least one debt collector doesn't call because you paid that one off. We can push through, trying to get in shape as long as we see something different in the mirror, like as long as one ab pops out. Listen, I would snort hummus if it would give me an ab. But listen, you can push through pain when there's progress. Am I right? But they didn't see any progress. And Joshua was just like, shut up and do what God told you to do. And I think sometimes we got to preach to ourselves. And we got to say, self, shut up and do what God told you to do. Yeah, but I'm not, my marriage, there ain't nothing good happening. I don't really, just shut up and keep doing what God told you to do. Okay, yeah, but, I've been relapsing so many times. Like, my family thinks I'm a joke. Like, just shut up and keep doing what God told you to do. Yeah, but I've been single forever, Lord. If you could just promise me a hottie with a body tomorrow, then I will just shut up. He's like, no, just shut up and keep doing what God told you to do. Yeah, but we've been paying this debt off forever. It's never going to get paid off. Just shut up and do what God told you to do. I'm not telling you to shut up. I'm just saying that's what the Bible says. But look, your progress, my progress, our progress is not always obvious. But don't quit on 6 because the breakthrough happens on lap 7. Happens on lap 7. So what's that mean? It means don't quit. Don't quit because the wall comes tumbling down at 7 and you have no idea everything that you could miss out on if you throw in the towel. So keep walking and keep marching. Keep walking and keep marching. Keep walking and keep marching. I'm going to end with this. I can't believe this. This has been 8.5 years I've been a pastor. I still can't believe I'm a pastor. I can't. Like, my closest friends are like, we can't either, actually. But I just, it's been crazy. The reason I think it's kind of crazy for me to be a pastor is because my whole life, I was very ambitious about not being a pastor. That was my goal. There was already 5 pastors on my dad's side of the family. 6 sounds unnecessary. And so, I adamantly did not want to be a pastor. And then one day in 2013, my dad's like, I think you're supposed to be the campus pastor at Rehoboth. And would you pray about it? I'm like, yeah, I did. And God said, you're crazy, Dad. No. But in 2003, I started preaching down here. And I was thinking about this week. There have been so many times where I could have thrown in the towel. Year one, I was the stage pastor. I was the youth pastor. I was the Bayshore Group's pastor. I was the kids pastor. I was the, sweeper of the steps out there. And I was the janitor. And I wasn't good at any of it. And so it would have been really easy to throw in the towel in year 1. Year 2, my buddy Bo came and served down here as a volunteer. But I was still doing all those other things. I was still the only person on the team. And I'll never forget, I've told this before, but year 2, we're doing worship. Bo's doing worship. I'm in it. And somebody comes up to me mid-worship. And it's like, Pastor Joel, there's one of the toilets in a ladies' room is clogged. And since you're the janitor, I'm like, oh, crap. I'm in the bathroom during worship, listening to worship, and I'm like, ugh. Somebody sinned bad in here. Okay, definitely could have thrown in the towel then. 2020, COVID-19. Could have thrown in the towel so many times. Listen, we had to shut down the church for half the year, and when we opened back up, way less than half of y'all came back. And look, I couldn't even see half y'all's faces. Miss Patsy had a face shield on. I'm like, oh my goodness. I could have thrown in the towel then. And I don't know what's an appropriate amount to share with you all and what's not, but those years were hard. But this year has been the hardest year I've ever been the pastor at this church. The hardest year. And you might be like, no, this year's been great. We threw axes last weekend. We gave away that college, paid off that college debt. Audi moved in over here. This has been great. And on one level in front of you all, it's been great. But behind the scenes, it's been Nightmare on Elm Street. And you don't know that. But there's been so many times where I could have thrown in the towel. But thinking about it, if I threw in the towel on year 1, I wouldn't have got to meet a guy named Mr. Ted. And we had a picture of Mr. Ted. And I always called him Dancing Mr. Ted because Dancing Mr. Ted would dance every weekend at the American Legion. And don't let this man fool you. He could cut a rug. And I met him on the first year that I started doing this. If I had thrown in the towel in 2015, I wouldn't have gotten to baptize Dancing Mr. Ted. And Dancing Mr. Ted loved to party, and so it was a baptism party, and so guess who's in line to get baptized? Dancing Mr. Ted. And I was this far from Dancing Mr. Ted when he said, "Hi, I'm Ted, and I'm a Jesus follower," to all y'all. And we danced. A few years later, after I baptized him, he came up to me right after the service one day, kind of danced up to me, because he's always like, I love Dancing Mr. Ted. And he's like, "I got a question for you." I was like, "Sure." He's like, "Would you marry me and my wife, or me and Lydia?" And he didn't say wife, because at that point I thought they were married. But he said, "Would you do our marriage ceremony?" And I'm like, "I thought you all were married." And he's like, "Well, yeah, we are. We've been married for 50 years. I wanted you to do a vow renewal for us." And so I did their 50-year vow renewal. It's amazing. And if I would have thrown in the towel, I wouldn't have gotten to experience that. And if I would have thrown in the towel, I wouldn't have got to experience Mr. Ted coming down those stairs every single Sunday morning and saying, "Did you dance this weekend, Dancing Mr. Ted?" And he'd be like, "Yes, I did." I wouldn't have got to experience that. And if I would have thrown in the towel, I couldn't stand up here right now and tell you all that Dancing Mr. Ted is dancing in heaven right now. Because Dancing Mr. Ted was here last Sunday, but he went to dance with the Lord on Monday. And I know where he is, because I was this far from him when he said, "My name is Ted, and I'm a Jesus follower." I got a front row seat to that. And at 1 o'clock, we're going to lay him to rest today. But I can look at his wife and say, "You guys are going to dance together again." And I know that because I got to see that with him. And so I'm so glad I kept marching and I kept walking, because you don't know what you will miss out on if you throw in the towel. And so I don't know who this is for, but somebody here, the God of the universe, wanted to send you a message today. And that message is, don't quit. Keep marching. Keep walking. And I think Mr. Ted would say, keep dancing. And when you fall and when you take a step back, just get back up and keep going. Because you could be on lap 6 and the breakthrough happens on lap 7. So don't quit on 6. Keep going. Keep going. Keep the grit to push through the quit. And when you want to quit, I want to remind you of a verse that I've looked at all week, and this is so good. Take a picture of the screen, tweet it, TikTok it, whatever you got to do, because this is so good. Galatians 6:9 says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." Do not give up. Do not give up. Don't give up. Keep marching. Keep walking, because you could be on lap 6 and the breakthrough happens on lap 7. Let me pray for you guys. Jesus, I'm so thankful for a story that, it's 3,500 years old, but man, it just hits us square today. It's not irrelevant. It's more relevant than we can imagine. And so, God, I just pray for those in the room who maybe wanted to throw in a towel, who maybe wanted to quit on any number of issues: drugs, alcohol, marriage, looking for a relationship, a dream, a job, whatever it is. God, I pray that we will have the grit to push through the quit. And when we want to quit, which is going to happen, we'll look at this verse we just read and we'll be reminded that we are not going to give up. We're not going to give up. We're going to keep marching. We're going to keep walking. And we're going to keep believing that we are on lap 6 and the best is yet to come when we get to lap 7. We thank you for the hope that you always deal us, Jesus. We love you so much. And everybody said, amen.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Bayshore podcast. I want to encourage you to take this message you just received and allow it to go deep into your soul and let Jesus do the deep work that only he can do. A special thanks to everyone that gives generously to Bayshore. It's because of you that this ministry is possible, creating life change all over the world. You can be a part of spreading the message around the world by going to bayshore.online and clicking Give. For all things Bayshore, visit bayshore.online to find out what your next step may be. You can subscribe right here and share this podcast with your friends and family. Thank you again for listening. God bless you.